Hi, this is Wendy. Welcome to my channel. A common problem that crocheters have is losing stitches so that your work gets smaller on one side or the other as you go along, and it can be really frustrating. I'm going to show you a couple of tips today to help you keep the same number of stitches in your work without having to count the entire row every time. So the first thing I want you to notice, I have a row of double crochet here, and I'm going to put a stitch marker into this last double crochet that I just made. Okay, so this one right here. Because I want to show you something. So that's my last double crochet in the row, right? The last V on the top. Now when I turn the work around, you'll notice something. On this side, the V is just before that last stitch, right? My stitch marker is just in front of this last double crochet, but when I turn it around, it actually sits a little bit to the left of that stitch. So it's a little bit behind. So that's the first thing to notice when you're trying to keep track of how many stitches you have at the end to make sure you haven't forgotten one, is that when you're working back on the back side of the row, those little V's sit just past, they lean a little to the left of that stitch. So think back, behind, front, in front, okay? So that will help you to keep track of where your stitch needs to go. The second thing, so I'm going to do a typical chain 3 turn here. So chain 1, 2, and 3. How do I know I have 3? Well, there's 3 V's under my hook. I don't count this one. So between here and here, there's 3. Okay. Now, another mistake people often make is when that chain 3 counts as a stitch, you've already got this first one accounted for. And remember, right, our first stitch was there. So we don't want to go into that first one because we've already accounted for that here. So when I make my first double crochet, I'm not going to go in this first one that sits at the base of my chain because that belongs to this first double crochet. I'm going to go into this second one. So here's my second little tip for you. Instead of counting the whole row, just count a few stitches at the end. So right now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's easy to see in this yarn, but if you have a fuzzy yarn or variegated or something, it can be harder to see. So just count your first 5. So I'm going to go back. So the chain 3 is my first one. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if you want to do 3, that's fine too. Just 5 is a nice easy number to remember. So there's my first 5. I'm going to put my stitch marker in that 5th one, right? Not the chain on the hook because that doesn't matter, or the loop on the hook. So there's a stitch marker in my 5th stitch, okay? Then let's say I was doing 100 stitches across. I just have a little sample here, but I'm going to do the rest of my row. And then when I come back and I come up to my stitch marker, I'll stop at that point. Okay, so I know my stitch marker is in this 5th stitch from the end, right? So I know I have 5 left. I don't have to count the rest of them in the row. I just need to know I have 5 left at this point. So I'm going to do my 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, one left. This is where a lot of people get confused because it looks like it's almost at the end, but I know I haven't done 5 yet. So my 5th one has to go in the top of that chain. And this will work for any kind of stitch. I'm just showing you on double crochet there. So now I have 5. And of course you can put a stitch marker at both ends to keep both ends straight. Okay, so now I'm back to my stitch marker. I know I have 5 left that I need to do. So that's the visual reminder. I don't need to count until I get to that point. Here's tip number 3. I'm going to take that stitch marker out and I'm going to put it in the one I just made on my current row, like that. Make my final 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now I know I need 5 stitches before the stitch marker. So that will help me to keep track of my starting stitches to make sure that I have the right number. 2, 3, 4, and 5. If I'd accidentally put one in that first space and I had 6, I would know that I was off at this point. So I know I need 5 before the stitch marker. Take it out, put it in the 5th one, and then when I come back, I know that I have 5 left at that point. So those are my 3 simple tips for keeping the right number of stitches in your row and not accidentally losing any off the end. If you found this helpful, please drop me a comment and let me know what other tips you would like to see. Have a super day.